Hey there, welcome back. Tonight I am going to be sharing some pretty personal updates with you and letting you know why I have been away from my channel for these last few weeks. So this is going to be a more serious video and maybe not exactly ASMR, but I wanted to communicate with you all and let you know what was happening with me, since you are always so supportive of me and whatever, I'm going through in life. And so I want to start out by saying that I am safe and I am fine, and the situation is now very stable and very positive, and we have a good plan for moving forward. So some of the things that I'm going to tell you about are kind of hard to talk about and were tough things to experience, but I just want to emphasize that this story has a happy ending because I don't want you to be scared for me, and I'm not doing this video to try to be dramatic or anything like that. I just want you to know what's going on, so just please know that everything is good at this point, as good as it can be, and we're in a good place. And so basically what happened is that over the last few weeks, my husband Justin has been experiencing a mental health crisis. And basically what happened was he had what at the time I thought was some kind of a psychological breakdown, mental breakdown. And what we now know, again, because this video isn't about suspense, it's about telling you what happened, we know now that he is bipolar. He has been diagnosed since this happened as being bipolar 1, and what was happening to him, which we didn't know at the time, was his first ever manic slash psychotic episode, which sounds very dramatic, and it was. And Justin doesn't have any history of anything like that, and so it was a pretty frightening and strange series of days, me trying to figure out what was going on with him. And I do want you to know that Justin is being very open about sharing his experience with people, and he knows that I am making this video and sharing this with you because he and I, are very respectful of each other, and we've been married for 20 years. We've been together since we were 20 years old, and we're very, very close. And so this just was a very, very difficult thing to go through. And like I said, when it was happening, I just had no idea what was happening. And in the beginning, his behavior was just sort of unusual and unlike him. And for a while, I thought he was having this creative awakening and sort of a creative resurgence within himself, which seemed like a good thing. But then it kind of got more extreme, and then for a few days I thought that maybe he was having a midlife crisis and he was going to tell me that he was going to leave me because his behavior was just really, really unlike him, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And then his symptoms escalated and he started having hallucinations, and he started having extreme sort of like obsessive paranoid tendencies where he was manically rearranging things in the house, and he was worried about what colors things were and how things were arranged. And he was having some really pretty severe hallucinations and extreme experiences. And while all this was happening, I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that my husband was not himself and that he was in distress and that he was going through something really terrible. And so it got to the point where I realized, okay, this is not, just odd behavior. This is something serious that is going on. And so I reached out for help, and his parents helped me and supported me. And we eventually ended up calling emergency services for Justin to be taken to the emergency room because his behavior had just gotten more erratic and more upsetting, and he just seemed really, really tortured and upset, and just nothing could calm him and settle him. And so we made that decision, and he was taken to the emergency room, and he was in the emergency room for a night. And that was really hard because I didn't really know what was going on with him at that time, and I wasn't able to see him while he was in the emergency room. But while he was there, they were able to give him a sedative and calm him down so that he wasn't in this dangerous zone anymore. And then the next day, he was transferred to the behavioral health ward of the hospital. And this is a hospital that is very close by to where we live, and a wonderful hospital and very accessible for me to get to. And so I was just so thankful that that is where he ended up. And at first, it was really, really difficult because the first night that I went to visit him, he didn't know who I was at all, and he was still in this very distressed, very manic state where he was just talking about all sorts of things that didn't make sense. And at first, he wouldn't even open up his eyes and look at me. He was just in a completely different universe, and that was really, really hard. But it was good that I got to see him that night, and he let me hold his hand. I mean, at first I was afraid to touch him because I didn't know if that would upset him, but I asked him if I could hold his hand, and he said yes, so I held his hand, and I sang to him that night. And then the next day, his behavior was still really, really manic, and he was in a lot of distress, and it seemed to be continuing to escalate. So at that point, they did administer to him an antipsychotic drug, and that really, really helped and started to bring him back into equilibrium. And so from that point, he started to get a very low and steady dose of this medication, and then eventually a second medication, which really helped him. And so over the course of the next few days, he calmed down more and became more balanced, and his behavior started to become, a little more calm and a little more like himself. And I'm telling you all these things in a very calm way right now, because I've done a lot of processing already of these things, and I wanted to be able to share them with you in a way that was, as straightforward as I could. But these were, of course, very, very difficult times for me, and I had a lot of support from my sister and from my family and from really, really good friends, and so I was not alone in this. I definitely had a lot of support, so I want you to know that I was, as well taken care of as I could be in this situation, even though I was incredibly distraught because I felt like my husband was gone, and I didn't know if he was going to come back to me, because again, at that point, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that something was very, very wrong. But over the course of a few days, he began to improve, and it's been 2 weeks that he has been in the hospital, and he will be coming home in a couple of days, and he is so very much improved, and he is very much back in balance, and he has come back to me, and we are able to connect again. And that was really, really hard when I couldn't connect to him because we have been together for such a long time. And typically in anything I'm going through, he's the one that supports me and is there for me. And this time, I really, really had to be there for them and for him. And so I drew on a lot of strength from people who love me and from my Shakti sisters. My classmates in my wellness coaching program have been such a support to me, and I have really drawn on my faith. I have really drawn on my faith in God. And, when you are flat on your face and at rock bottom and your whole life has just been pulled out from under you, sometimes there's nothing you can do but just surrender and trust that something bigger than you is going to take care of the situation, because you can't. And I'm a person who has always wanted to help people, and I'm a fixer, and I take care of people, and I always try to make sure that nobody, ever has to be hurting or suffering. And this was a situation that I couldn't control, and I couldn't help Justin. I helped him as much as I could, but it was beyond me, and I needed help from others, and he needed the help of professionals to, find out what was going on and help him figure out how to get well. So he received this diagnosis after a time of being in the hospital. The doctors there have been wonderful, and he's just in this incredible place with a wonderful nursing staff and a lot of people to support him. So I've been so grateful for that. And he has been diagnosed as bipolar 1, and I didn't even know that bipolar is the new name, not really that new, I guess, new name for manic depression, that they are the same thing. And so to me, manic depression is maybe a little bit more obviously descriptive of what it is. But I had to look up the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 1, it's not like a magnitude scale, but bipolar 1 means that you've had at least one of these manic psychotic episodes. And bipolar 2 means you haven't had one of those episodes, but you have longer periods of depressive episodes. So I think in general, it just means that Justin leans a little more towards the manic side, and, he may exhibit signs of the depressive side too. And it's interesting because, as I said, he doesn't have any kind of a history with anything like this. He's always been a person of mild ups and downs in his life, but nothing like what has just occurred. And apparently it's actually kind of unusual, but not unheard of, to be diagnosed as bipolar later in life. Justin is 43, and oftentimes people are diagnosed, I guess, in their teens or 20s with bipolar, but it's probably the case that Justin has had these tendencies for a long time throughout his life, and he just never had a full-fledged episode for whatever reason. And so this was the onset episode of this condition for him. And so now that we know what we're dealing with, he has a great treatment plan in place. And like I said, he is on some medications that are really helping him. And that is really new for him because he's never really been on prescription meds for anything before. And I'm really proud of him because he's embracing, being committed to taking his medicine and getting into the routines that they want him to get into to help support his health. And now that he is back in balance, the biggest thing for him to do is to avoid triggers that would potentially, cause him to have another episode. And the biggest triggers are, would be stopping his medicine without assistance. So he obviously won't be doing that. and being under a lot of stress, which he was under a lot of stress with his job and some other life situations. So we're going to be making some pretty extreme lifestyle changes to make sure that he is supported and doesn't have to be under that stress anymore. And he is committed to not drinking alcohol or using cannabis or using any other drugs because that would be, detrimental to his meds. And he hasn't drank alcohol in years and years, but he was a cannabis user. And again, he's being very open about this because he wants, people to know the situation and to, learn from his experience. So he's now made a commitment to, be totally sober and clean and commit himself to taking care of his body so that he can, be in ideal condition to deal with this diagnosis. And another one of the big potential things that can trigger another episode is not getting enough sleep and having erratic sleep patterns. And he's always been a person who has stayed up late and, not always had the best sleep. And that was one of the early signs in this, is that he really was getting less and less sleep and his sleep was becoming more erratic. So that is something that we'll be working on to get him into a good sleep routine. And it is pretty fortunate, he said this to me yesterday, that, not everybody has a live-in Ayurvedic wellness coach like he does, who loves him very much, who can help him. And so that's going to be, a cool personal mission for me to use my wellness coaching skills to support my husband and to, help him set up good, restorative, nourishing routines to help him in this new era of his life. And the other thing that this has really, really done for me is it has inspired me and lit a fire in my heart to educate people about what manic episodes look like and how they present. Because now that I know more about this and have, been educating myself and have learned a lot over the last few weeks, I now know that he was actually exhibiting very clear symptoms and warning signs of slipping into a manic episode, and I just didn't recognize them because I had no idea what those warning signs were. And it occurred to me, I keep thinking of this, that, we all know what the warning signs of a heart attack look like. So why don't we know what the warning signs of someone slipping into a psychosis looks like? And it just was so telling to me because now if I look at a list of symptoms of bipolar or, I look at what the signs are of someone slipping into a manic episode, it's very obvious that it matched up with what Justin was experiencing. And I realized that, with depression, I think that's a little bit easier, with the depression side of it, easier to recognize because we all kind of understand what depression is and we know that depression is not a good thing. But the manic side of it, I think, is much trickier because, especially early on, the manic symptoms can kind of seem positive. Like I said in the beginning, Justin just had more energy than he usually does. He was being, more friendly and outgoing, and he was wanting to share things with people way more openly than he normally would. And he was very, very confident, more confident than he normally would be. It seemed to me like he was being cocky, and I sort of couldn't figure out what was going on with him and why he was acting like that. And he was getting inspired to work on a whole bunch of different projects, but couldn't really stay focused on any of them. And he felt like he was really on a mission to do something, but he couldn't really define what that mission was. All of these things are, sort of signposts for bipolar or for a manic episode. And I just didn't know that. And if I had known what some of those indicators were, and maybe I could have pieced some of that together, it would have been so helpful for me and so much less scary to be able to say, oh, maybe my husband is slipping into this state that is something that is known about and that there are warning signs for, instead of me just being totally freaked out and having no idea what was going on and thinking that my husband was just being a totally different person, and then, just really, really going through this extreme delusional, upsetting time with no explanation and no reason at all to figure out why it was happening. And so that's something that I want to share more about, and I may even start a whole second channel for Justin and me to talk about this experience and share it with people, because I just think it's so important for people to talk about these things. And I mean, at first when this was going on, I was just so upset and so distraught, and I was saving all my energy for focusing, on just the immediate things that were in front of me, because in the beginning we didn't know what was going on, and I was trying to coordinate Justin's care, and there were a lot of logistics to manage, and taking phone calls and making phone calls and figuring out where he was going to be and what his condition was in, and it was a very, upsetting time. And I should probably add that on top of this, right in the middle of all this happening, we had an unexpected blizzard, and I got almost 3 feet of snow at my house and had no electricity. So my brother-in-law had to come to my house and kind of rescue me out of the snow, and he carried Hazel, my 40-pound dog, up our steep driveway in thigh-deep snow to get her to his truck so that we would be safe and have electricity. And this was at the same time that we were trying to figure out what was going on with Justin. He had gone to his parents' home at that point for a day, and so I have been saying to people, now that I can joke a tiny bit about things, that mental illness is very common, and a lot of people have gone through the experience of a partner, having some kind of an episode or a breakdown like this. But I think far less people have had that experience, and at the same time had a giant blizzard at their house and had to leave their house, in sort of an emergency mode, and then I didn't have access to my house or my vehicle for 3 days because my house and my 4Runner, my truck, were buried under 2.5 feet of snow. So I was at my sister's house dealing with all of this stuff in the immediate, and in a way that was nice because her house was kind of crisis central, and she really supported me, and it was good to kind of, be in a different space for that. And then when I was able to come back to my own house 3 days later and dig the 4Runner out of the snow and get back into my home, I was able to leave some of that kind of crisis energy at her home, and then, be a little more at peace when I got back to my house. But I've been, doing the best I can over these last few weeks, trying to take care of myself, while I've also been just laser focused on Justin's care, hour to hour, day to day, and figuring out what was going on with him, and, making the best decisions that we could for him as things were happening. And in the beginning, I was in a pretty rough state. And I mean, I couldn't even, the first few days, I couldn't read. I couldn't even watch a YouTube video. I couldn't even watch ASMR. I was just, all of my energy was just going towards this one focus. But then, over time, once he became a little more stable and I knew that he was safe and being well taken care of, I have tried to build back up my own routines, and I've been, eating healthy, nourishing food. I've been going to the co-op every time after I visit Justin and buying myself some really delicious, nourishing food to bring home with me. And so that has been good. And I've had, Hazel and my cat Yurichi, who was very stalwart and stayed here for 3 days by herself in the blizzard, but she was fine. And like I said, I have a lot of support from friends and family. I have friends who brought me wonderful, delicious food after I got back to my house, when I was just really, really at a low point, and that food was so nourishing because it was filled and infused with their love. And that meal kind of brought me back to life. And after that, I was able to, kind of build up and get back into my routines a little bit. And, I did not record any videos because I just, didn't have the energy or the focus for that. But I thought about you all during this time. I really did. And I've missed connecting with you. And it's so funny that very last video, it's not funny, it's the universe, it's God divinely guiding things like everything. But that last video I made right before this all kind of, busted open was that nervous system video where I outlined all these different ways to help calm your nervous system. And let me tell you, I relied on every single one of those strategies during this time. And, I spent time in that video talking about smells and aromatherapy. And that is something that helped me so much through this time because I was just so distraught that it was hard for me to tap into any of my other, skills and practices. So I was just, I have this eucalyptus essential oil and I just kept smelling it because that was such a, strong, pungent smell to bring me back to my senses and help me to focus on things. And so I'm just so glad, for all the tools that I have. And another thing I am grateful for is that I have spent the last 2 years in this wellness coaching program and fortifying myself and working through a lot of my old fears and, just weird old baggage and things that were holding me down so that I could be in the state right now to handle this situation and to not crumble under it. Because I feel like if this had happened maybe 5 years ago, I think I would have had a breakdown too, and I would have been, in the hospital right next to Justin. I would have just completely not been able to handle it. I would have just, broken down and crumbled and fallen apart at the thought of, not being able to connect with Justin. But I didn't because I have done all this work over the last few years to fortify my soul and to sit with my emotions and to be in uncomfortable situations and to deal with stress in a much, more resourced kind of way. I was able to survive this, and I was able to support my husband and support myself and do all the things that I needed to do, and I'm okay. And, I am getting support for myself. I am going to be going to therapy and therapy specifically around this, to help myself process everything. And I'm encouraging everyone in our family to do the same, to be able to do the processing that they need because it's obviously been very difficult for everybody who cares about Justin to, have this experience and to know what he's going through and to not, really have been able to help him, directly. But like I said, this story does, have a good ending. And, this has been a ramble in the true sense because I just wanted to sit down here and be really honest with you and, just tell you what was on my heart and, just be really straightforward and transparent about it. And I will tell you that, walking through this fire has certainly burnt away a lot of my old crap and a lot of things that I used to worry about are just completely gone because I am now only focused on the most important priorities of life. And so, in a way, I think this is a blessing, and I'm, not happy that Justin had to go through something so terrible and that he had to, suffer the way he did and that I had to suffer the way I did while he was going through it. But I do think that, this is a turning point for us. I think this is the beginning of a whole new life for Justin and a whole new life for us as a couple, a life where we're really prioritizing our health and kind of radically not caring what other people think and being really true to our hearts and our intuition about what we think is right for us and our life and our family, and really just, living life on our own terms, living life in a way that we need to be healthy and to meet our own needs, and not worrying about what the world says we should be doing or what we should be focused on or what we should be, accomplishing in life. That this whole thing has kind of pressed this giant reset button on our life, which is a blessing despite the pain that has come with it. And so overall, I'm hopeful and I'm encouraged about moving forward. And so again, I just want to reiterate that I am okay and I am safe, and Justin is okay and he is safe, and we are all doing as well as we can in this circumstance. And like I said, he is improving every day, and he's getting more in balance, and his cognition is improving every day, and he's really coming back to himself. And particularly over these last few days, I feel like he and I have been working as a team again on our next steps, and that is just a miracle that I am so grateful for because, for a while there, I couldn't really reach him at all. And then, for a period of time, it's kind of been more like I've been parenting him, instead of being his equal partner, because he has needed all this extra support. And one of the symptoms for him was that for a time he did kind of revert into kind of a childlike state. And as he's been coming, back into balance, there have been times where he has seemed kind of childlike or more like a teenager. And so, I've just kind of had to get myself into that mindset of doing what I need to do right now to support him. And, there are interpersonal aspects to this, of course, and this, has changed our relationship and will change our relationship. And so he and I, have really renewed our commitment to each other and are looking forward together with, new eyes, with eyes unclouded. One of the other things I wanted to say is when, I did finally get to a point where Justin was safe and stable enough that I wasn't just, completely focused on his immediate care and safety, and I could start to, kind of take in a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of information. I was, trying to watch some YouTube videos about psychosis and try to understand what it was. And there's a really good channel called Living Well with Schizophrenia, a woman who has a diagnosis of schizophrenia, and she and her partner make videos about their life, and, they have children, and she's had this diagnosis for a lot of her life, and they talk about, the ways that they live in balance with it and the way that she addresses it. And one of her videos really helped me understand the signs of psychosis, and that was what first sort of clued me in to like, wow, Justin really was showing clear signs of this. And then there was another video where her partner was talking about one of their experiences when she had been slipping into a psychosis, and he was talking about how it was difficult for him to kind of tease out what were interpersonal issues between them and what were her symptoms sometimes. And that was just so reassuring to me because I thought, this is a guy who knows that his partner has a diagnosis and, it's something that they are always working on together. And yet it's still difficult for him sometimes to figure out, like, is this our relationship, or is this, are these symptoms? And so that just made me feel better about the early stages of this when I didn't know if it was something interpersonal going on between Justin and me, and if he was behaving so differently because it was an issue in our relationship. And, it's just brought home to me how nuanced, so many of these mental health issues can be, and, they are hard to spot, and it's not always black and white. And so again, I'm really heartened and inspired to share this experience with people so that perhaps I can help someone else to have some more information about this and not have to be quite as scared and freaked out and clueless as I was when this was happening. So I don't know how long I've been rambling to you all. I just really, really wanted to sit down and share this with you. And I want you to know that I am going to continue making ASMR videos. I am so committed to ASMR even more than before now because I'm just even more committed, to helping people have tools to support their mental health and their wellness. And like I said, I think this will be a whole new element for me of my wellness coaching and of the things I want to share and the ways that I want to help the world. So I am going to continue to make videos. I don't know exactly, what the next few weeks are going to look like as we're getting Justin into good routines. And it's very possible that he may have a depressive dip after fully coming down from this manic episode. And so, we are preparing for that and have a lot of supports in place for him in case that would happen. So I'm definitely going to honor, my own energy and the situation and the transition that we're in and not, push myself to make videos. But it's always very therapeutic for me to make videos, even in the best of times. And from the beginning, this channel has been, my laboratory for working with my own emotions and my own fears and my own nervous system. And I want to continue to do that. And more than ever, I want to, share relaxation and positivity and hope with as many people as I can. And so I did also, as a side note, I wanted to share with you all that the other day I did set up monetization for my YouTube videos because I had already reached 1,000 subscribers, and so I was eligible to do that, but I hadn't done it right away because, to be honest, I felt, a little bit about, like, making you all watch ads. And I mean, I know, YouTube can put ads on whatever they want, even if you're not monetized, but, especially with relaxation videos, the act of, actively placing an ad before the video, I'm like, I wish I didn't have to do that and I didn't feel pressed to do that. But, at this point, not that, I mean, Justin and I have a lot of resources and we're very well supported. And so it's not like, I mean, don't worry, it's not like, we don't have resources and we're going to be out on the street or something like that. But I have just been thinking, more about trying to optimize as many revenue streams as I can for us. And so I just sort of felt like maybe I couldn't afford to be so scrupulous anymore to think that I didn't want to take advantage of possible YouTube income. So I have monetized my videos, and so I appreciate it. I appreciate you all not minding, having to watch some of an ad sometimes before you get to watch one of my videos, and I do appreciate that. And something that I had been planning to do before this happened was to kind of expand my offerings and start posting some additional videos and content over on Ko-fi, where I have my tip jar. And, it's kind of like Patreon. I was thinking about, doing some paid content over there, that you could subscribe to and pay a little monthly subscription fee to have access to some extra content. So I think I will still do that down the road once I've gotten back into my regular schedule of YouTube, because I do always want, to do regular content on YouTube that everybody has access to. And I think maybe those are all of my updates. So thank you for listening to me, particularly because this video was more therapeutic for me than relaxing for you, probably. So I appreciate you listening to me and creating a space for me to share this. And this, kind little community of people that we have here just means so much to me. And you have all always been so kind and encouraging to me from the very beginning. And so it's just really special. I mean, it really is. It's really special to me that I can share this with all of you and that I don't have to feel afraid, that I know that I can be really honest and I can be really vulnerable here, and that you all will support me. And that is just a miracle to me, and I'm so grateful for all of you. So thank you again. Thank you for your support. Thank you for always, always lifting me up. Thank you for being here. And, one more time, I want to reiterate that I am doing well, and Justin is doing very well, and we have a positive, proactive plan for moving ahead together. And, we will both have a lot of healing to do and a lot of rest to catch up on, and a lot of things that, we have to process and we have to work through. But, having had having an experience like this, even though it's something I did not expect and could never ever have planned for, I have been saying to people that I do feel like this whole situation and experience has been divinely guided, because every step of the way, when I have needed resources or I have needed support, they have appeared for me from somewhere. And I'm just so very grateful for that. And I just keep thinking that this has been so divinely orchestrated, and this has been, the crappy part of the story. This has been the bad part. So now that we're getting to the good part, now that we're getting to the, positive ending and the, positive future, think how even more abundant and divine it's going to be. So thank you all so much. I'm sending you so much love. And again, please don't worry about me. I'm not telling you all this because I want you to be worried or I want you to be, upset for me or scared for me. I don't want that. I do appreciate your compassion and your love very much. But please know that I am okay, and that just you thinking of me and, praying for Justin, if that's something, that you're called to do, and sending us good energy is really, really helpful. And I can always feel it. And I guess maybe I'll just end by saying that when I finally was able to focus a little bit more, and I started watching some ASMR videos at night to try to help me go to sleep, I just again appreciated this community and all the wonderful people and all the variety of ASMR that's out there. And it was actually really funny in the beginning, before I could even watch ASMR. What I was watching was old clips of Perfect Strangers, the sitcom, from the late 80s and 90s. I don't know if you've ever watched Perfect Strangers, but it was one of my favorites growing up. And so I looked up some old silly clips and watched some Perfect Strangers, and that like made me be able to smile a tiny bit when nothing else could. And then when I was finally able to, okay, maybe take in a little more, I've been listening to a lot of Beautiful Chorus. Their music is just so soothing and so grounding, and so I highly recommend them. They are just a wonderful resource anytime you need inspiration or fortification. And I should give a special shout out to a few of the ASMR channels. I was watching Abby ASMR and Sky ASMR and Comforting Sounds ASMR, your shorts, which are so lovely and so skillfully done and are just perfect little nuggets of relaxation and distraction. So thank you. And then during this time, Goodnight Moon put out a video in her Very Strange series, which is one of my favorites. I love that character. And it is a very strange energy removal. And because I have just been through an incredibly strange experience, that video was so soothing and so healing to me. So I recommend that you look up that one. And then I went back to my classic favorite, Paris ASMR, who is the first ASMR creator I ever listened to, I ever watched. And I was watching one of his more recent videos in English. He doesn't do a lot of videos in English anymore. He does most of his videos in French. And it was an encouraging friend, kind of semi-role play, which was so comforting to me. And he was talking in that video about the miracle of ASMR and how, we can be connected in this way, and even though it's not in real time, the intention that, is set from an ASMR creator to bring our energy to you and to make a connection with you, and then the intention that you bring when you watch the video, your receptivity and your ability to accept the energy that we are offering. I mean, it's this beautiful connection. It's this beautiful dynamic back and forth. And I just really, really appreciate that. And so I was so appreciative of him. Thank you, Flo, Paris ASMR, for the comfort that you gave to me. And again, I am just so pleased and happy to be able to bring some sort of comfort and peace and love and gentleness into your life when you need it. So I think I've reached about the end of my ramble capacity right now, as I've been saying to people during this experience, because sometimes I just can only talk about it to a certain extent and then I have to stop. So I've become very clear with people in saying, okay, I'm at capacity right now in this conversation. We need to pause. And people in my life have been so wonderful and loving and respectful of that. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And I promise you will hear from me again soon, probably with a more typical type video, which will be fun for me to create. And I hope that you are doing okay. And if there is anything that you are struggling with, please, please, please ask for help, because that is something else that this situation has brought home to me so deeply, is how important it is to be willing to ask for help when you need it, and to accept the love and the kindness and the care that other people want to give you. So take good care of yourself, rest well, and I'll see you again soon.